And finally, to tell us how to save the family one meal at a time, a priest as well as a professional cook. Father Leo PATALINGHUG is making it his mission to reconnect the spirit of family to the soul of food. He's written a new book on the subject called Saving the Family, the Transformative Power of Sharing Meals with People You Love. I sat down with him recently here in Washington to talk about it. Here's my interview with Father Leo PATALINGHUG. Father Leo, I want to start with a few statistics in your Saving the Family book. You mentioned here that less than 30% of families make time to eat together every day.
We've bought into the fast food mentality, and the unfortunate reality is the health benefits that come from a regular family meal are being forgotten. We're raising very unhealthy families and unhealthy children.
Wow. Now, how will this book help families return to the table? That family table, it's critical. I mean, look, I'm a New Orleanian. Our whole culture takes place around that table.
But also, your culture is about faith as well.
It is.
And so the fidelity of the family meal is what this book is trying to encourage. I didn't say a daily, but I said a regular family meal. And this book is going to help the families because it's going to remind the parents of their role as a formation director for their children.
Now, you say you really are calling people to be supper heroes. In your word. How do they do that? And what do you say to the parent that says, look, we'd love to have that family dinner every day, but I'm working 2 jobs, my wife's doing another job, we've got pickups and drop-offs and practices and rehearsals and game practices. What do you say?
And a superhero always knows how to manage their schedule, and they always know how to prioritize. If they know that feeding their children is going to give them life, because if you don't feed your kids, they'll die, then guess what's going to happen? They will be fed elsewhere. And let me tell you, the devil wants to feed your children.
Why is it so important to make that time and to gather around a meal? I mean, why is that different from, say, going to a movie or going to an outing or taking a ride?
So let me rephrase the question. Why is it necessary? Because it's not important. You got to feed your kids. But the ultimate reason is because cooking and serving people is, number one, what Jesus asked us to do, and 2, we're the only animals in the animal kingdom that can do this. And we're not even doing what comes natural to us anymore. It's going to help us to become more who we're called to be, and your children to become saints.
There are some real benefits, too, to children being part of that family meal every night. You mentioned in the book, I'll put them up on the screen. You say here, kids' academic performance on average, 38% better grades. It improves communication. Kids are likely to tell parents about their problems. It lowers risk behavior. Kids are less likely to smoke, drink, or use drugs. Healthy eating habits, 40% less likely to be overweight if they eat as a family. And the emotional well-being. Kids experience lower levels of depression. Are people you talk to aware of the health benefits and the emotional benefits of that family table?
When I speak around the country and around the world, no matter what the culture or religion is, they all say, this makes sense, but they're not doing it. And the reason is because I think they're letting other things get into the way, and it's destroying the family. And I said it before, I do believe that evil is real and wants to do nothing more than to destroy society, and we know how to do that, destroy the family.
Now, there's a neat thing you do. You talk about food as an acronym, F.O.O.D.
Correct.
Describe what each of those letters represent and what they tell us about this family.
Sure. Food, F.O.O.D., F for fidelity. You got to be faithful. O, obedience. This is an opportunity for us to listen to each other. O, opportunities. Because honestly, MTV says, what do they want most? The opportunity to spend time with their family. And D, discernment. You can see how I'm taking the formation of the Catholic family and applying it to your domestic church's family.
Teens, once the kids hit teen years, they're really not interested in having those conversations anymore, or many deep conversations. How do you draw them to the table and keep them engaged?
Number one, I encourage families, stop peppering your kids with annoying questions because you're going to sound nosy. So here's what you do. Share a little bit about what you're going through and give them a chance to just hear what you're saying. If you can treat them like the adult that they're trying to become, then I guarantee you they will be engaged.
Yeah, I agree. Current events, helping them. I always say what I love about that moment where you come to, at the end of the day, you're bringing your shared experience together. You're also talking through current events and matters, and it's your little tiny opportunity to stamp your values and your ideas on these issues to help the kids shape their own.
And it tells the children that mom and dad are not perfect. We're just as vulnerable as you
Right.
are. I'm really going through a difficult time at my job. I saw this on the news. I almost cried. What did you think of this?
Right.
You're treating them like the adult that they want to become. And you're showing your vulnerability.
Or eating half of the, I'm going to have half of that because we don't have enough for you to have the whole
That's right.
chicken breast. What topics should be off the table at family gatherings? You say there are certain things you should simply not do.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Really?
No, we can talk about it, but I think we need to talk about it in appropriate ways. If you've got a 6-year-old kid,
My gosh,
and a
we'll have nothing to
teenager-
talk about at our table
Exactly.
if we take those three away.
But if you've got a 6-year-old and a teenager, then you got to be able to figure out maybe these difficult topics, those topics that lead to divisiveness. Maybe we can postpone that for let's get a drink afterwards if you're old enough, or let's go for an ice cream sundae and talk
Or a
about
walk,
these
yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
You see, the family meal communicates something, and that's called communion.
What about correcting kids?
Yeah.
At the family table.
Mom and dad did it to my brothers and sisters, of course. But they
Never
did it,
you.
Oh, never. But they did it all the time, but they did it in a way not to create tension so that the meal left a bitter taste in the mouth. Is there a time when we can just be together? So you can say, hey, I want to talk to you about that behavior. Let's finish our dinner first, and let's talk
And then
about
I'll
that
hit
later.
you with the ladle.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was our
even,
family.
even better, you're going to have to do the extra dishes.
Oh, okay. Talk about the intergenerational gatherings. You talk about that here as well.
Yeah.
How it's important to bring together the various ages of the family at the same table.
This is interesting because that's what a lot of non-Catholics have taken to this book. I'm teaching a family how to be a family when you're feeding your children mashed peas to when they're feeding you mashed peas and everything in between. It's literally a self-help for the family book because families are going to change. You can't do what you did when they were toddlers as when they have their own toddlers. You see, what we're trying to do is respect change,
Yeah.
which nobody wants to do.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that and change, you also have a section here where you talk about mission critical.
Sure.
When the kids fly the coop, that you should still maintain that family meal, even though it's two of you.
Absolutely.
How does that work, though? What does that mean?
I guarantee you, just like my family, if the food is good, we will be back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
more importantly, you have to know that feeding your spouse and being fed in community, that doesn't end when your quote-unquote job is done of feeding your children. There's still more community left for you.
Even if that means going to a restaurant, a nice restaurant?
Why not? But don't go to the same one. I say maybe go to a different one and stop being boring. Because ultimately this book is trying to remind us that saving the family is going to mean that life is worth saving and it's exciting.
You recently celebrated your 20th anniversary
Yes,
as a
I
priest.
did.
Congratulations.
Thank you kindly.
Did you ever think that you'd be a priest/chef?
Heaven no.
That this would be the mission?
Well, what's interesting is on my holy card, way before all of this plating grace movement began, my holy card was Jesus' question on John 21, do you love me? And of course, I do, and therefore he said, then feed my flock, feed my sheep. This is a way to maybe ask forgiveness for my sins.
Oh, see, I thought you were going to tell me you had the picture of the Last Supper on. Then
I
it
did.
would
I
brought
have
the
that
whole-
too,
You
but
did?
the quote was,
Oh, really?
do you love me?
Wow. I want to get your thoughts before I let you go. In my home state,
Correct.
in Louisiana, the legislature there recently passed a heartbeat bill similar to Georgia, where if a fetal heartbeat is present, you may not abort that child.
Sure.
In response, a very large group of renowned chefs in the city of New Orleans, and some not so renowned, let's face it,
Sure.
have come out and they are raising funds in a baking event for Planned Parenthood. Your thoughts on using food in that way?
Food has now become a weapon, as it was in the Old Testament. It's a weapon to try to diminish the other person by not giving it to them. It's becoming so political, and my whole mission is to say, enough with the politics, can we just at least come together? The reality is that the pro-life movement and the food movement, they all have one thing in common. You gotta feed even that unborn baby. And I think good health care not only takes care of the mom, it also takes care of the baby. We need to feed both well.
Yeah. Father Leo, thank you for being here.
My absolute pleasure.
Great to see you.
You too.